This is the respiration monitor belt. It measures the respiration rate of a human. So you might use it in a physiology lab, comparing exercise, holding your breath, things like that. It's essentially like a giant blood pressure cuff, arm cuff. Really what it's doing is measuring the diaphragm pressure across your chest. So you're actually going to put it across here, and as you breathe in, it causes the pressure to fluctuate inside the cuff, and you measure that pressure fluctuation. Now, it's not a sensor unto itself. It actually has to be used with another sensor, and that's our gas pressure sensor. It's a commonly used sensor, so there's a good chance you may have some of these. And the way it works is that you attach the respiration belt to the pressure sensor like that, and then you plug in the gas pressure sensor to your collection device. Now, one thing that's going to happen is that in this case the LabQuest 2, it recognizes that I am using a gas pressure sensor. But what I really want to be using is this respiration monitor belt. And I have to go in and set this up to let it know that I'm actually using this as an attachment to the gas pressure sensor, and so I'll need to do that before I can actually collect any data. It's very important to have the respiration monitor belt fit tightly across your body and be in the right position. So what we recommend is that the test subject sit down, and you could have somebody assist, which I did, to have put on the cuff here. And I've got it set so it's about at the bottom of my elbow, so it crosses my diaphragm here. And what I will do is pump the cuff up using the bulb that's here. And I want to pump it up so that the pressure in the cuff is about 6 kilopascals higher than background. So I'm running at about 99, close to 100 kPa. So if I pump it up so that it's about at 106 or greater than that, then that should be enough pressure in the cuff for it to work. Because what's going to happen is, as I breathe in and out, I want that cuff pressure to go up and down as I breathe, and I need that change in pressure to be great enough that it can actually count those. And we want it to be at least about 3 kPa in change in pressure as it goes up and down. So at this point, I need to pump up the cuff to get it ready to see if we can work this. So I'll pump this up. Okay. And so now it's a little over 106, so that should be just fine. We'd like to test whether or not the pressure, the delta is good enough. So if we just look at the screen as I breathe in and out, I can see that the pressure is changing at about 3 kPa as I go up and down. So the cuff pressure should be about right. So now that I have my belt set where it needs to be, I need to set up my device for the data collection. So right now, it's defaulting to seeing the gas pressure sensor, and I need to go in and tell it that I'm using the respiration monitor belt. What we see here is that the gas pressure sensor is in channel 1, but we actually want it to recognize that I'm using the respiration monitor belt. So to do this, I go up to where it says Sensors, and I do Sensor Setup, and it's going to create a list of the different channels, and we've got the gas pressure sensor in channel 1, and so I'll select channel 1. And down right there, kind of as a subset, it says respiration monitor. And so I will click there, I will say OK. And now I'm fine with that, so I'll go OK. And what we're seeing now is that it recognizes that it's using the respiration monitor belt, and the units here are breaths per minute. And what this does is that it actually has to calculate that value. And so it's measuring the increase in the pressure in the cuff as you breathe in and out, and essentially counting those in a period of time and calculating that value. So there will be a lag in the data that you see on the screen. Now, if you look at this up here, it says duration 300 seconds, 5 minutes. So that's the default. I will use that. And then the rate of 10 samples per second. That's fine. The experiment that I'm going to do, it's really simple. I'm just going to breathe normally for a period of time, then hold my breath basically as long as I can, and then start breathing again. And so I'll have kind of a flat normal respiration rate. It's going to drop down to 0, and then it's probably going to increase as my body tries to recover from holding my breath. So at this point, we're ready to collect. So I will press the collect button and start the process. And that's probably long enough, so I'll stop collection. Now we have some data, and we might take a look at it. So this portion of the data is where I am just breathing kind of normally there. And we could do a couple things here. I might be interested in the stats maybe of this region. Maybe I want an average value for that region, so I'm going to highlight just a part of that region there. You can go under Analyze and do Statistics. Check the box next to Respiration. So the mean breaths per minute there was 21 breaths per minute. If I wanted to do this other section here and maybe actually look at the change in values, I could do this. I'll go back to Stats, uncheck that. I'll go over here and maybe tap and drag. We start over here and go down this way. So I might be interested in what are the values in here with the stats, and go here and do the stats there. So actually, if you look there, we ended up with a maximum of 28 breaths per minute there at the top, and then it drops down back down to about 19, about the same level I had over here. I won't do the stats down there because it drops down to 0 pretty obviously there. So obviously that as I held my breath, then when my body had to recover, I started breathing faster, and then gradually it recovered back down to the normal breaths per minute. So again, the respiration monitor belt is an accessory that you can add to the gas pressure sensor to measure human respiration. So if you are doing physiology labs that require that, then that would be the tool to use.